You are in for a treat today because you will be meeting and seeing how a great artist does a watercolor still life that looks so realistic it's going to blow you away. Welcome to Shelley Prior in Canada. Hey, Shelley.
Hi, thank you.
Where in Canada are you?
I'm in Burlington, which is just a little west of Toronto.
Cool. What are you going to do for us today, Shelley?
Well, I'm going to do a little still life similar to something like this.
Wow. Wait, hold that up. We want to see what you do. Wow. All right. Well, you're going to show us how to do that with watercolor. I didn't even realize when I first saw it before the show, I didn't even realize it was watercolor. It's not. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with watercolor. It just didn't register because it looked so realistic. I know that's tough to do. So you're going to show us how to do that.
Yes.
Well, why don't we get right to it? And I guess you've got a camera that you can look down on your watercolor paints. And
yes.
All right.
So
looking forward to that.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on full screen here. And now I'm just let you kind of take over. And we want to see how this is done. I'm fascinated. Ooh, luscious. Now tell us about what kind of paint you're using.
Okay. Most of my paints are artist quality, and I have a couple of different brands here. Most of them are Da Vinci paints. I'm going to be working on Arches 140-pound cold press paper. I'm using a bright white here.
Okay.
And you can see that I've done a little bit of prep work here. So I've put on a little bit of masking fluid for this because here's my reference image. Okay, so it's a little bit like the one I just showed you, but different composition. And so what I've done here is I'll see if I can get this closer for you to see. But
Lower
you can see
it down
that
a little bit.
A tablecloth with a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, the tablecloth with a little bit of.
It's got embroidery on it, right?
Texture, yeah.
So I wanted to get that effect. So what I'm doing is I've masked that off.
Now, a lot of people don't know what that means. Tell us what masking is.
Okay, so masking fluid is basically liquid rubber that is suspended in an ammonia concoction that they create, and it basically acts as a resist for your watercolor. So you can put it on your paper, and it feels very rubbery, and it will completely resist, so that you can paint around something very easily. And
I'm just going to interrupt you again. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody for doing that. But when we use words like resist, a lot of people don't know those words, especially if they don't come from your world. So what does resist mean?
Okay, so this is going to save the white part of the paper. The paint cannot penetrate this, so it actually resists the paint.
So is the blue that we're seeing already got the what do you call it? The
masking fluid.
Masking fluid on it?
Yes, it does.
So the blue is the masking fluid.
Correct.
And so once you do the painting, you peel that off. That's preserving the white color underneath.
Correct.
That's really cool.
Yes, because the big thing in watercolor, of course, is saving those whites.
Right.
You can also add little bits of white, but ideally you want to keep the original white of the paper. So that's where this resist comes in. The masking fluid will save those little parts until you're ready to paint them. So that's what I've done. And I just want to maybe just talk a little bit about the masking, because if you've never done masking before, you might have no idea how it gets applied or anything. But basically what I'm going to do here is take a brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of soap, and I'm putting soap on my brush.
So you dipped it in water, and now is that brush soap?
It's brush soap, but you can use any soap, like a bar of soap or liquid soap or anything like that will work. Okay. Basically what this is going to do is it's going to coat the bristles of the brush so that when you dip it into your masking fluid, it doesn't stick. Because what happens with this masking fluid, it's a little bit, if you ever got gum in your hair as a kid, that's just what it's like to get it out of your brushes. So this prevents that.
Great trick.
Okay. So then what I do is I pour the masking fluid into a cup, And now you see that if I pour this in, this is not blue.
Yeah, I was wondering
Right?
about that.
It's actually not blue. So what I do to make it blue, because if I tried to paint something, let me just dip into that. If I try to paint,
you're not going to be able to see it.
paper, you can't see it, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make it blue so that I can see what I'm doing, so that I can do it accurately.
Well, I think you have a new business in front of you. It can be Shelley's blue masking fluid.
Yeah. So I'm going to take I'm going to use cobalt blue. So you'd never want to use a staining color for this, right? Take a little bit of cobalt blue, and I'll just put a little bit on the side and let it drip down there.
Yeah.
And then I just stir it in, and then I have masking fluid that's blue.
All right.
All right. And that's what I can work with. And if I can see it, I can paint a lot more accurately with my masking fluid.
Great. What is a staining color? What colors would you not use?
Nothing that is a phthalo, for sure. Nothing that's a phthalo. There's a lot of greens have staining colors in them because they contain some phthalo. If you wanted to test whether or not a color is staining or not, paint it on something, let it dry, and then use a brush and see how much it lifts. If it still leaves color on there, you'll know that it's a staining color.
Okay. I've learned some things. I wonder if that would work with oil paint. Now, I know with oil, you can just put white over other things, but sometimes you can't really get it to cover something dark, or if you're trying to preserve an area, white spot for the sun or something. Wonder if it would work with oil.
Probably not, because the viscosity of the oil paint is a lot thicker, and you wouldn't get as much of a clean edge. So in other words, if the paint were thicker and you tried to remove the masking fluid, it'd probably give you a bit of a jagged edge.
I see. Okay.
But
I'm going to try it.
If you applied it thinly, it might work.
I'm going to try it.
I've never tried it.
Okay.
But yeah, the oil paint is a little thicker, so it probably would not... probably wouldn't behave the same, I wouldn't think.
All right. So for people who just tuned in, by using this blue masking fluid, putting some soap on your brush so it doesn't stick to your brush, putting some color into your masking fluid, now you can see it, and you're going to put it any place that you want the white to be preserved so you can pull it off later.
Right.
Okay.
So for example, I'm gonna paint in this little section right in here.
Is there a way you can get your reference photo and maybe kind of put it at the top of your tray or something on that big white square right there by the top of your tray?
Sure, right there.
Yeah, that'll help. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I'll put this in here, and that area, and you can see it's very liquid.
Yeah.
And in, I don't know, a couple of minutes, that'll be dry.
Okay.
It doesn't take very long.
All right.
So now, and I did all this previously so that I could come in and do something a little different here. I want to do this really dark background, because one of the things that people mention about some of my painting is that the things are dark enough that they don't believe it's watercolor. They always kind of think that watercolor's all transparent and it's all, very, very soft looking. And I paint more realistically. So I'm going to show you how I would achieve a really dark background like this.
Okay.
I should mention that one thing that I did before I started any of this, you can see that I've got actual water. I don't know how much light I've got here, but
yeah, I can see it.
Water sitting in my wells there, so that I've softened up my paint.
Okay, so you'd take a droplet and just kind of put water on all your paint.
Yeah, I just take one of these
droppers,
pipettes. Yeah. And I've put some water in there because I want to soften up the paint that's here. Because one thing when you're painting realistically and you want to get rich color, is you can't do it with dry paint.
Okay.
You often see people in there scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing their paint, trying to get it softened up so that they can paint with it. and get a dark color, but they never seem to achieve it. So one way you can do it is by softening up your paint or going right to your tubes and putting fresh paint out.
So you're using tubed watercolor paint?
Right. I have taken a palette. This palette was empty when I purchased it 100 years ago, and I fill it with my colors. Now you'll notice that the layout of my paint, I've got everything grouped. Pretty much everything on this side is considered warm colors, and everything on this side is considered cool colors.
Yeah.
You know, if you're setting up your palette, to set it up in a similar fashion to a color wheel is ideal. So I'm just going to take some, this is Payne's Gray that I'm using right here.
Okay. So you can use tube paint and reconstitute it by adding water to it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I did not know that. That's good to know.
Yeah. You don't waste paint in watercolor.
Yeah. By the way, a couple days ago, we had a woman on who taught us how to make our own watercolor paint.
Yes. I was a VIP person for Realism Live, and I got some of that paint, some of the pigments from her.
Yeah.
In my goodie bag. That was very nice.
Yeah. Glad you enjoyed that.
I'm sorry?
I said, glad you enjoyed that.
I sure did. Okay, so I've got my Payne's Gray, which has just come out of the tube here. And I'm using, now this brush, you can buy this at an art store, but I actually got it at a grocery store. This is a basting brush, but I want you to notice the size of it. It's like almost as big as my hand here. And even though I'm not working on a big canvas, I'm going to I'm going to use this giant brush. So my brush, I've dipped it in a little bit of water here, and I'm pulling it out, but I want to make sure I don't dilute this color too much. I need it to flow, but not get watery on me. So I'm pulling it out, and here goes. So I'm going to, I think I'll paint brush in this direction. Let me move this down a little bit. I have had to move my reference out of the picture for a moment, but oh, that's a little too dry. So let's get a little more fluid going here.
Wow, that's pretty intense dark.
Now, I didn't mask the whole pot, so I want to make sure that I'm not going beyond, I'm not breaching my masking fluid lines there. Let's see. Look at that color. Like, that is rich color. Now, watercolor is going to dry about 20 to 20, or maybe 25% lighter. It's a little different. If you're an acrylic artist, your paint will dry darker, but if you're a watercolorist, it'll dry lighter and significantly lighter. So I'm going to put this on. Now, I'm getting over to this side, and I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I think I'd like to tint this a little bit with something else. So I'm going to come over to my palette here, and I'm going to put in, not dirty up my palette. I'm going to put in some permanent rose over here. I'll put some in there and get that into the mixture, just so I have a little variation in this. So this side will get a little bit pinker.
Okay.
That wasn't very much.
All right.
I think I got to get a little bit more in there.
A lot of positive comments. I want to tell everybody, by the way, we have prizes today. And if you leave comments, you might win a prize. Today's prize is a pair of value specs that help you see your lights and dark values when you're painting. And the winner of yesterday's prize, the Make More Money Selling Your Art book, is Charlotte Gray from Utah. Congratulations, Charlotte. All right. Make sure you leave comments. Tell us city and state or country or something so we know where you're from. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. Yeah, I'm just applying paint here. Okay, so I've covered that entire thing, which with a small brush would have taken me a long time, but with this large brush, it's great. So I just need to leave that to dry now.
All right.
But I'm going to wipe off my edges. I have masking tape around my edges. You'll notice I've got my paper taped down,
Yeah.
but I've also pre-stretched my paper, which means that I have, well, first of all, watercolor paper, good watercolor paper is 100% cotton. So it shrinks just like
Yeah.
your jeans. And so what I've done is I've put it in the sink. Well, this was big enough I could put in my sink, but you want to soak it for about a couple of minutes, just long enough for it to get really limp.
Oh, so you're taking the paper, putting it in water just before you start painting on it. So is it wet when you begin painting on it, or you wait till it dries?
No. What I actually do is it comes out of the water, then I staple it down immediately, and I leave it to dry, because that's when the shrinking process happens.
Okay.
And once it's dry, because you see this is all dry. Once it's dry, it gets tight as a drum. First of all, it wrinkles like crazy, and you think, oh my gosh, it's ruined. I've messed it up, and you haven't. It gets wrinkly, but it shrinks because it's cotton.
Okay. Well, I keep learning new things that I did not know. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, you'll be learning lots at Watercolor Live, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Yep, I'll be there.
Oh, good.
All right, so now I'm just going to leave that to dry. And actually, I could speed this up, and I could blow dry this, because there's nothing more fun than waiting for paint to dry, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell you what, are you going to use your blow dryer for a second?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to mute your audio, and I'm going to tell everybody about something we're giving away. And then you kind of wave your hand in front once you're ready, and I'll bring you back on.
Or I can mute my own mic.
No, I'll do it. That way you don't have to do it.
Okay.
All right. So what I wanted to tell you guys about is that we're giving away a watercolor painting. And it's a $7,000 painting. And it's by Thomas Schaller. Let's see. I'm going to take her out for a second. Oops. All right. Nope. All right. Well, for some reason, this is transparent. But we have a $7,000 watercolor painting from Thomas Schaller that Thomas is decided to donate. And you can go to paintinggiveaway.com to try and win that painting. And what a great opportunity. So just go there now or put it in the comments. Make sure you do it later. Go to paintinggiveaway.com. We'll give it away during Watercolor Live, which is coming up at the end of the month. And so, by the way, just make sure you get your ticket. It's a great opportunity. We had a huge number of people come on yesterday and sign up because yesterday was the deadline on the lowest price, but it's still going to be worth it. No matter what, you're gonna love Watercolor Live. We got the world's best watercolor artist teaching. Okay, so looks like she's still blow drying, and so we'll just wait. We'll see. Want to hear what that sounds like? Drying. Okay, so essentially what I should tell you guys about, since we've got just a little bit more time, is let me just play this real quickly for you.
Join the world for Watercolor Live, the ultimate watercolor learning event, January 27th to 30th. 4 days of online art lessons from top master watercolor artists from around the globe. Learn to paint nature, people, cityscapes, flowers, and more. Become a better artist. Click the link to learn more and get our free ebook, 101 Watercolor Secrets from the Top Masters.
That was painless. Okay, looks like she's still drying here. Let's see. Okay, looks like you're pretty close to ready. All right. Okay, you're on again.
Okay. So now I have my background is dry, and I can take off this masking fluid. So what I'm going to use to remove this is it's called a pickup rubber cement eraser.
Yeah.
But it's basically like crepe. You remember in the 70s and they had those shoes with the crepe soles? That's what it's like. So I'm going to just take this now and remove my masking. Okay, see how rubbery it is?
Yeah,
It's
and
coming off in a big strip.
well, such very sharp edge. This is fun. And if your paint were dry, then you'd start having smudges and other problems.
Oh, yeah. So you only ever apply masking fluid on dry paper, and you only ever take it off on dry paper.
Okay.
This will come off pretty quick. Almost there.
Okay.
I don't want to take it all off though, because I have some painting I need to do down here. All right. So what I want to do for my foreground here, let me just set my brush aside, is I'm going to take a nice brush that's going to hold a lot of water for me here.
What kind of brush is that?
This is a black velvet oval brush, 1 inch.
Okay.
And I like the way it's got a big belly to it. So you can see sort of the width of it here. It's got a big belly. It holds lots of water, tapers to a nice point.
Okay.
So it allows me to sort of tuck into little corners, but yet still give a nice big wash.
Okay.
Okay. So what I want to do here for this tablecloth, because it's not pure white, it's a little bit white, and there's a little bit of highlight on the embroidery. So I'm going to just give this a little bit of color, and just sort of this ecru color here. I'm just going to put a little raw sienna here. Little raw sienna. Raw sienna by itself is a little bit too yellow. So if I want to dull that, I'm going to go to the complement, which would be purple. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of dioxazine here to dull that down. And I'm going to super dilute it. This is almost like the opposite of what I did right here.
Okay, sure.
Super dilute. Lots of water so that this almost becomes just tinted water.
All right.
All right.
Kinda
So
like
I want to
tea.
come in and, sorry?
Like tea.
Exactly. So I'm going to wash this in. I'm going to work around my my teapot here, or my sugar bowl, I guess it is. And see, here's where I can tuck right up underneath there. And I'm going to work around my fruit that's in the foreground.
Yeah, we can't see that very well.
No, I know it's it's really super diluted. I'll hold it a little bit closer so you can see.
Oh, yeah.
See a little bit of color there?
Yeah.
All right. All right, just going to put this on there.
If you guys are enjoying this, make sure to hit the like button or the heart button or something. Also, if you share this, your friends will still have time to see how she does the rest of the painting.
Or catch a replay.
Or catch the replay. That's right. Because when you share, it helps everybody, because we can bring more artists to our family.
There we go. Okay, so I've got it covered, but I want to get a little bit more. I want to get a little bit more color at the bottom, only because I want to give it some visual weight. It's very top heavy at the moment.
Okay.
So I want to give it some visual weight for a stronger composition. So I'm going to come in with more color at the bottom. You can see that I picked up a little bit of Payne's gray there. Let's get that mixed in. All right, so you can see that that's giving me a little bit more color at the bottom.
Okay, cool.
Now again, I have to wipe off my tape. And this is important when you're doing your watercolor because you see all this water drops along here?
Yeah.
They can make blossoms. Now, if you don't know what a blossom is, it is when, well, if you've ever tried to spot wash something on a shirt and it left a watermark around it, that's what a blossom's like. And it's going to leave that ugly mark on your painting. So I'm going to wipe off all this stuff on the edges.
Well, the other thing is I noticed that you had a little Payne's Gray on there and it picked it up when you were painting. So if you get it wiped out properly, it's not going to pick it up.
Yeah, yeah. So, so I'm just going to finish this up. Now, some of this stuff is a little hard to tuck into because it's so tight, you know. Oh, that was not a good color to put in there, but I'll just blend that in. All right, so I've got a little bit of this stuff to pull up to the edges. I didn't get it quite as accurate as I wanted while I had the big brush. So I'm going to come in here with my smaller brush and just, this is all wet paint, so I can just pull it up to those edges and make a nice edge. Okay, so now I can clean up all that stuff. And you need to do it while it's wet. If you do it later, you'll have all these hard edges. Not very nice.
Yep.
So, all right, so that's all really wet. The paper's beginning to wrinkle. And
so am I.
yeah, we all are. such as it is. So I've got a little lint in there. I'll just pull that out actually.
All right.
And I'm going to really quickly blow dry this. I can mute to do it.
Okay. While you're muting, I'll just tell everybody something else. Okay. Okay. So, wow. Kind of fun to watch this happening. So let me just tell you a couple of things. First off, if you're new to us, we're here every day at 12 noon. And we're on Streamline Art. If you look up YouTube, go to YouTube, go search Streamline Art, or you can go to Facebook and YouTube. We're at 12 noon daily. And also at 3 p.m. daily, we offer segments of the art instruction videos that we've created, over, I don't know, 600 of them. Today, we're going to be showing you Kyle Ma painting roses, a segment from that, and you'll get a discount on that. Today at 3 o'clock, every day we give a discount on the one we're showing. And so this is a really fabulous painting. I want to also tell you guys that we have, oh, here's the painting that Kyle did. It's an oil painting of roses. Now, the other thing I just want to mention to you is that we have a free gift. It's called 97 Amazing Painting Secrets from the World's Top Artists. And yours free if you go to 97tips.com. Now, if you want the DVD version, you pay shipping, but otherwise you can have the streaming version and immediately. I want to tell you guys that Watercolor Live is coming up. I mentioned that earlier, played the promo, and it's got an amazing faculty and you don't want to miss it. It's coming up the end of this month. And this says register by January 24th now, and to save $300. And so get that done. And it's right before the event, which is the 27th. Okay. And thank you to our many sponsors who are participating in Watercolor Live. All right. Let's see if we can get this back. Are you back to normal?
I am.
All right.
Okay.
Our guest today is Shelley Prior from Canada.
Yep. And so what I'm going to do here is on my reference, let's bring my reference back in here. Okay, so I've got my reference picture here. I've got this nice dark background already established. I've got a little bit of color. I've warmed it up a little bit in my foreground here. And I'm going to start working on this silver because silver is fascinating. Now, I'm going to leave me out of the picture here. Like I've got a little image of me taking the photo, and that's the downside to taking things that are reflective. But
well, it's a self-portrait.
Anyway, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be really interesting to include that kind of stuff, but I don't think I'm going to do that today. So what I could be doing right now is I could be masking around all the little bits and pieces in here, but I think in order just, to make this go a little faster, I'm going to just paint directly. And I will sort of skip around the highlight areas. Now, in watercolor, of course, you have to leave the white of the paper as your highlight. So if I do need to add any more in later, there is a paint that I can use that I can add that in. Okay, so I'm going to start mixing up my color that I need for here, which looks a little bit of a warm gray to me. So
Okay.
I'm going to actually take some of the color that I used in the cloth, and I'll pull that aside, and some of the Payne's gray, and that's what I'm going to use to make my gray. As much as possible, I like to try and utilize colors that are being used elsewhere in my painting.
Gives you harmony.
Yes, it does. Unifies it and makes it good. So I'm going to do just this lid here. And there's really not too many highlights on this other than this one bright spot over here. Now you notice I'm painting the whole thing one color. I'm not painting just the light color. I'm painting the whole thing because the darks will go in on top. And it's a lot easier to do it this way in watercolor because if I painted just one thing and then I tried to paint something up against it and then I get an overlap, you get a dark line where they overlap. So it's better to just run the lighter colors straight underneath.
Shelley, you're a very good teacher.
Well, thank you. I do a lot of teaching. I kind of like
it. It shows.
All right, so I'm deliberately leaving a couple little sparkles of light in here. Okay, so I'm just leaving that on there. And I'm going to come down now into this section. Now this little part here, I already masked out, so I can just paint right over that. But I'm going to come down into here. In watercolor, you always will put your washes on first and then put your details on after.
Okay.
I mean, it's the same in any painting, I suppose, but it's especially important in watercolor. I think a lot of people in watercolor, when they're starting out, have a tendency to get impatient and they start putting the jewelry on before the pants.
That would be me. As a matter of fact, I run around with jewelry on without my pants. I'm just kidding. I'm going to get a complaint. I will get a complaint about that comment.
Now, what I can do while this is wet, this lid here, you can see that, that line between the dark and the not so dark area is pretty crisp. But down here, there's a little bit more of a transition. So if I come in right away and I get some more darks in here and push that in there, and I've just gone straight into my Payne's gray for this. I can put this in on the wet color and it will flow. And you can see that that's doing this wonderful transitioning for me. Now, I really don't need to paint all the stuff that's in here because the stuff that's in here is really not crucial to the overall design. So I'm basically just dropping in a little bit of color just to suggest that there's things going on in the reflection.
All right.
So when I'm putting paint into a wet surface, my paint that I'm putting into my wet surface needs to be drier than the surface. Otherwise, you get that blossom effect that I was talking about earlier.
Ah.
So it always needs to be drier. All right, so
Okay,
I'm going to
picking up
come in
all kinds of
along
great tips.
Well, that's an almost an essential one to know in watercolor, because the one thing about watercolor is learning the water paint ratio, and you know how to load your brush and stuff, and you know a lot of that just has to come from practice. I can explain to you how to ride a bike, but you get on that bike, you still have to find your own balance, right? So it's the
Yep.
same in watercolor.
Okay.
All right, so I'm getting a few of the darks in here. I'm just going straight into this Payne's gray. This is, of course, what's being reflected in the sugar bowl, because it's what our background is. Got a little part up here I missed. I'll put that in there too. And I'll come down here. All right, so it's already beginning to get a little bit of that metallic effect just from doing that.
Uh-huh.
This is dry enough now, I think. No, I'm not going to push it. I'm just going to come back to my diluted color here. And I'm going to jump up here to this little thing at the top.
That would be a dealy flopper.
A which?
It's a dealy flopper. If you don't know what a thing
okay.
is, you call it a dealy flopper.
Never
I
heard that
harken back
one.
to my being 10 years old and having silly things like that.
It's like a thingamajig.
Exactly.
Or a doomahickey.
Well, what?
A doomahickey.
Doomahickey. I hadn't heard that one.
Well, then we're tied. I never heard of yours either. All right, so just putting a little bit of detail in that.
All right.
I can't come in and put any darks in there yet, or that'll just fill right in. That's a really small spot, so I'm going to have to wait on that.
Okay.
Jewelry has to come at the end, remember?
Can you show your reference photo again, please?
Yes.
There's people tuning in late.
There's the doomahickey.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Yeah. So that was that little part that I painted at the top. I left a lot of light on the left side. And I'm going to come down now and get a little bit of reflection in this lower part here, because being stark white doesn't quite cut it. I do have my little pieces of fruit in here, so I have to ask myself one thing. Is my tablecloth lighter or darker than those things? That'll determine whether or not I can paint through it or not. So since my fruit is darker, I can paint right through it.
Okay.
Right. So you should always ask yourself that question before you tediously paint around stuff. All right, so I'm going to come in. I'm going to wet this area first, I think, because I want to keep it quite light.
So you're just wetting it.
This is just water, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I see a subject like something metallic and I'm totally intimidated by it, but you're really making it come to life, helping me understand how to do it.
Well, in things that are metallic or shiny, you're always going to get high contrast, and you'll very often get a lot of sharp edges. So you have to do this underpainting, but then a lot of what goes on top is just hard edges. So it makes it quite straightforward. So you always do the wash first. Don't ever try to do well, I shouldn't say ever, but rarely you would put a wash on top of detail. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more color at the bottom here. And you can see, I love how, this is the one thing I love about watercolor, is how it flows one thing into another.
Yep.
And I'm going to come down into the feet of this thing too, but I'm going to try to skip around and leave a few whites. By that, I mean leaving the white paper. So I'm just hinting at a couple of spots that I want to get some color in these legs.
We got about 15 minutes left, so you're doing great.
Let's get up here and get the, this is dry now. I can come in and get the darker.
Show your reference photo one more time so we know what you're doing.
Yeah. Let's see if I can put that there. I can slide this over a little bit, then we can see both.
Oh, good.
That?
Perfect.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. It's actually closer to where I'm working too, which is better. All right, so I'm going to come in and paint this shadow. Now it could be a little darker, so come in a little bit darker here. Now, as with watercolor, it almost always dries lighter. So this middle section here, I can see it's already still a little bit on the light side. And I'm going to have to, you know what, I'm going to do something, and I'm just going to go right through this and get this whole thing darker than I had it.
All right.
Because it's dried so much that I'm just going to fill this whole thing in because it's dried much lighter. You can see that that's a better value. I'm going to go even a little bit darker than that. There we go. That's going to be a better value. When I first started watercolor, I never thought you could come back in on something after it was dry because I thought it would smear everything. And but yeah, I found out once it's dry, you can, which is great. So I'm going to come in with a couple of little dark areas here. I'm working in wet.
I'm having fun watching this. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Give us a like or a thumbs up if you do, or leave a comment. And also a reminder that we have prizes. Today, our prize is a pair of value specs. And so if you want to win one of those, and everybody gets them, says they just absolutely love them. So put a comment in. Maybe we'll pick you, even if you're in a replay, because we pick them right before the next broadcast. And so you have an opportunity, even if you're watching late at night. We're getting huge numbers, Shelley, and on the replays, the average is 10,500 on the replays, and we had one the other day that went up to 65,000. That was Thomas Schaller.
Wow.
And of course, we're giving away a Thomas Schaller painting at paintinggiveaway.com, a $7,000 painting. So pays to have a big name like that, but you're knocking it out of the park. I think you're going to get a lot of audience.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate you having me.
Oh yeah, we love this.
Okay, so I'm going to come in now and seem to have got a little bit of blue on my hand and got a little bit in there, so we'll just scrub that out before it becomes a permanent part. There we go. All right, there's a little bit of color, a little bit of shadow on the underside of this pot. I'm going to put that in there. So you're getting the sense of the metal now. And I can come in and add, I'm going to go to a smaller brush here. When I'm working on the handle, I need to use the appropriate size brush.
Of course.
So taking a little raw sienna and that Payne's gray to get a nice warm gray, kind of a bit warmer there. And I'm just going to, that's a little bit dark.
So you just added water to lighten it up.
Yeah, that's the easy way to do it, right? No mixing paint.
Comes with experience.
So this is the little bits of jewelry. I had put a little bit of this same color in here, and I'm adding in a little bit of jewelry here for the metal. Basically, I'm just looking at wherever the dark areas are. To add this in.
Doesn't need much to be convincing, does it?
Not really, and that's the thing about painting metallics and glass and things like that. I paint a lot of glass, and you know, people are afraid of it because of all the reflection, but the reflection is really not that hard to achieve.
Well, this has helped me be less intimidated by a subject like that.
Well, that's good. And I'm going to add in a little bit here. Not taking too much time because, well, we don't have too much time.
Yeah, you got about.
So yeah, like I'll paint very realistically, but of course, I'll post something and people will think that I've whipped it up in an hour, and of course, it takes quite a while, especially in watercolor. There's a lot of dry time.
Yeah.
And you do need to wait for the dry time. Seriously.
Do you ever paint from actual still life, or do you always paint from photos?
Oh no, I paint from still life. I paint plein air with watercolor. Maybe what I'll do is I'll explain to you how I achieved my drawing in the first place. I took a piece of this is just regular paper, and I did my ugly drawing, my sketching on here. Well, I wouldn't want to be doing all of this on my watercolor paper and messing it up and erasing and roughing up my surface and everything. So what I do is I put it on one piece of paper first. So I sketch it, and then I taped it down, and I put transfer paper underneath to give myself a nice clean drawing. So you put the tracing paper underneath, or the transfer paper underneath, and then I just go around and make a nice clean drawing. So I do all my working out here. Pardon me?
Is your transfer paper chalk?
No, it is a gray transfer paper. See, it's like this.
Okay. Oh, like carbon paper.
Not carbon. Carbon is ink.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it has to be graphite paper, and this does come black, gray, and white.
Okay.
But I'm using the gray, and you can see this piece is like really well used.
Yeah.
The older it is, the better it is, because it transfers really lightly. So that's what I've done to get my drawing on here.
All right.
So
you're down to your last 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
So this is your grand finale.
So you got the idea about the metal. Let's take off some of the masking fluid from the tablecloth. Okay, so that's off my tablecloth. And what I can do, let me pull this closer here.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see the white
Yep.
that was left behind?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go into that with this same background color, or the same cloth color. And that's my masking brush. That's why it doesn't have a nice point. Okay, let's use my... Okay, so I'm going to come in and just dabble in just the idea of a few stitches in here.
Little texture, yeah.
Right? And then I can come in and shade that. So that's going to give me the idea of my embroidery. I just come along there and just dabble in a lot on all of that stuff. And so I'm not painting stitches. I'm really just suggesting them. People think I paint really realistically, but if you really zoom in, you'll see, oh, it's not really all that precise after all.
Now, would you take this at this point? Would you take the highlight off of your pot, or is that something you're going to darken up there more?
I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold off on that one because I might decide to make this section darker. If you take your masking fluid off prematurely, then you have to start painting around all those whites again.
Yeah.
And that slows you down. So, if I wanted to paint more in here, I could do that now more easily. But I think what I'll do is I'm just going to show you that it'd be quite easy to come in and add the fruit now. This section here is pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to just suggest the fruit. Is it dry enough? Might not be dry enough yet. I do have to wait for that.
Well, we might not have time to see it because we're down to our last 3 or 4 minutes. So. Okay,
no problem. I'll go for it. If it bleeds, it bleeds.
Go for it. All right. That's the right attitude.
Seems to be okay as long as I don't work too wet. There. My brush isn't too wet. I'm pretty good. All right. So I'm putting my light color in first, light value first, and then the dark on top. But I can put the dark in while it's wet. So I can come in. That was a little bit of permanent rose I put in there. Now I'm going to put in a little bit of, this is alizarin crimson. I'm going to darken it up just a little bit more with that Payne's gray. And I'm going to put the shadow in on that. And if I do it while it's wet, it blends nicely. Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, it's convincing.
All right, I want to put a little yellow into that though, along the top. A little too pinky for my liking. I'm going to yellow that up a little bit. If we've only got a minute left, I'm just going to show you one last thing, and that is to put the white on. So the white, this is P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White.
Bleed Proof White?
Bleed Proof White. Now, people tend to use this in watercolor. Without any training, people tend to use this like whiteout. And it's really not intended like whiteout. Like, in other words, you can't just paint over something and then keep painting on top of it. This is intended as little accents. So if I wanted to add little accents to something, this is what I would use. So let me come up to the little thing at the top here, and I'm going to maybe touch in a couple little highlights here.
So is that a gouache?
It is it's a gouache, yes.
Yeah.
So it's an opaque watercolor. And the reason it's called bleed proof is because you could put it on top of something and the color from underneath doesn't come through. It doesn't mean that if you touch something beside it, it won't run.
Well, this is fabulous.
And since I'm still here, I'm going to just come in with the last few little shadows on this section up here to really make this top look like it's metal.
All right. Looks metal to me. Well, you do us a favor, Shelley, when you finish this up completely, maybe you'll post it in the Facebook post of this broadcast.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. I'd love to.
Well, why don't you come back on camera so we can say goodbye? You've done a fabulous job here. I love learning new things, and Shelley is a great teacher. I've learned so much today. You are fabulous.
Well, thank you.
Really, really nice. So yeah, post that image. And if anybody wants to find Shelley, you can find her website at, let's see here. What is it? ShelleyPrior.com. Okay. Now there's a couple of our other artists that are Priors. There's two Scott Priors, Scott W. Prior and Scott Prior, and now Shelley Prior. I think it must be a family thing.
The cousins I don't know about, perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably right. Well, Shelley, thank you for being on today. We really appreciate it. God bless. Keep your head in the right place. This is an interesting time. I don't know if it's as crazy in Canada as it is here, but I'm sure you're watching. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Our guest today is Shelley Prior. You can find her at shelleyprior.com. My name is Eric Rhoads. I'm with Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine. I want to tell you one more time, Watercolor Live is coming up. And in case you have not gone to the website to see it, the lineup of watercolor artists is absolutely world class. So we've got Joseph Zbukvich. We've got everybody. I mean, I don't have time to get into all the people, but Thomas Schaller, I mentioned. I also want to mention to you that, well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Anyway, Watercolor Live's coming up thanks to these sponsors, and we're real grateful for them. Today at 3 p.m., Kyle Ma is going to teach you how to paint roses from his video, Painting Roses with Kyle Ma. Also, let's see. Tomorrow, our guest will be Mary Garish. You're going to love Mary Garish. Today was fabulous. If you want to win the Thomas Schaller painting, for some reason this is transparent, but if you want to win that, just go to paintinggiveaway.com and you'll have a chance to win it. That's a $7,000 painting we're going to give away during Watercolor Live. You don't have to be present to win, but you're going to want to be. If you decide to go, do it soon. You can still save money. And we have a 100% money back guarantee. So if you don't feel like it's the price you paid is worth even the first full day, let us know. We'll refund your money because we want you to be happy. Anyway, I'm here every day at 12 noon and every day at 3 p.m. for our video segments. We are now into day 292 since quarantine began. And we are so grateful that we're able to be here with you. We have people like you who are all over the world tuning in. We're becoming one big art family, and it's really been kind of fun. And we're trying to get through this together. You know, this is a crazy time. There's a lot of, just a lot of stuff going on. And you know, it kind of feels like 2020, doesn't it? Anyway, we will get through this together. Just remember, you have to stay positive. You don't want to sit around and doom scroll, sit around and watch the news and feel how horrible everything is. You've just got to keep your heart pure and trust that everything is going to be okay, and stay positive and upbeat, and that way you can keep others around you positive and upbeat as well. It's real easy to get down these days. Anyway, stay positive. God bless you. Thank you for being here today. Tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow will be day number 293. We're coming up to 300. We're going to have, if we get there, we're going to have a big celebration on 300. So you want to start hanging in there. Please share this with your friends And please follow me. If you don't mind, you can either go to my website, ericrhoads.com, or just go to Instagram or Facebook. Just follow me there. That would be really helpful. And that way we can communicate all the time. So remember to leave a comment before you leave today to win a pair of value specs. And congratulations to Charlotte Gray from Utah, who won my book, Make More Money Selling Your Art. Thank you. Have a terrific